Hi, it's Dwyer. GamblersAdvisory.com, a free site. BettingAngle.us, a free site. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Now, it is July 27th, 2023. I've had a few days to digest Inoue's acquisition of a title in a fourth weight class. 4. And understand, he is unbeaten. Understand, most of his fights end by stoppage. You can't look at him and say he's a judge's favorite when he's not allowing the judges to weigh in on most of his fights. This is the definition of a first ballot Hall of Famer, right? And just understand, he's unsatisfied. He wants to fight Palace, who owns a share of the belt at super bantamweight this year. Having Fulton's 2 belts isn't enough in late July of 2023 for Inoue. He wants to be undisputed in his second weight class. Understand, he was undisputed at bantamweight. Now, it's more beer for us. You won on the Inoue victory. You also won because Inoue won the fight by stoppage. Right? Let's talk about Inoue, but first, let's give a little bit context. You know it when you see it. I've used the phrase here before. Freak athlete. Right? Life's unfair. Some athletes are just more dominant than even professional athletes. Right? There's a claim out there that Jim Thorpe spent a lot of his time preparing for the Olympic decathlon by meditating, visualizing. Right? Google it. Well, let's just say Jim Thorpe was a freak athlete. Right? Understand, I saw Michael Jordan when he was a rookie. You always see these hotshot college guys, their first year in the NBA. They enter with a lot of enthusiasm. And Jordan, of course, was a North Carolina Tar Heel, and he was highly thought of and all this. And I remember seeing Jordan playing hardcore defense early. And this is back in the 80s when most guys didn't know what defense was, right? Unless you were a big man under the boards throwing a lot of elbows. Well, just understand, I asked myself at the time, I thought, how long is this going to last? This level of enthusiasm, right? A lot of these rookies, after their first month, they understand they're just a guy in this bigger ocean. They understand the season's 82 games. They understand that they have to do load management. I guess that's the phrase we use today. And can't be all out on defense, especially when they're dominant offensively. Well, just to understand, Jordan's defense lasted all 4 quarters of that first game I saw him as a professional. It lasted every game, all 4 quarters, when Jordan was a Chicago Bull, several years. If you think Jordan, who averaged 30 a game for his career, if you think Jordan was dominant offensively, what I want particularly younger people to do is to look up Jordan's all-defensive team designations, right? And you need to understand, Jordan took some time off in the middle of his career, retired, came back to the sport, right? Let's just say Jordan was dominant, at least as dominant defensively as he was offensively. Jordan was a freak athlete, right? Let me say, we don't give freak athletes enough credit. In the 1980s, when Jose Canseco, who was dominant, the year he went 40-40, there was an interview with Willie Mays. And up here, there's a little bit of parochialism. Up here being Northern California. Canseco was an Oakland A. Willie Mays, of course, is Mr. San Francisco Giant. There's a statue of Willie at 24 Willie Mays Plaza, which is where the Giants play. That's how big he is, right? San Francisco actually has someone who might be bigger than Steph Curry among the local public, Willie Mays. Well, let me just say this. They asked Willie about 40-40. And Willie, who was a bit prickly at times, said to the interviewer, look, if I knew that 40-40 was a thing, I would have done that several years. It was then that I looked up Willie's record. It was then that I realized that Willie Mays, the great fielder, Willie Mays, 660 home runs, led the National League in steals a number of years. Willie Mays apparently was a base stealer. Understand, when you're that dominant, we start to overlook things. Right? You're saying 660 home runs. You don't even see the other numbers. Well, let's talk about Inoue. You know, I don't say this lightly. This is that rare freak athlete in boxing. We've seen it before. We've seen it recently. Manny Pacquiao is a freak athlete. What do I mean by that? Well, Manny Pacquiao typically had faster hand speed than his opponent. Right? Just stop and think, in what percentage of Manny Pacquiao fights did Manny Pacquiao have faster hand speed than his opponent? Right? Folks, I'm just telling you, if there are any such fights, let's just say they're very few and far between. Manny Pacquiao, probably more than 95% of the time, had faster hands than his opponent. Right? Ask yourself, in Manny Pacquiao fights, how many of those fights did Pacquiao have faster foot speed than his opponent? You know, here again, I would say probably 95% of the time. Understand, this is in professional boxing. He's fighting professional fighters, professional athletes. And this guy physically is gifted. Manny Pacquiao's straight left hand. In how many fights did an opponent have a better punch than that punch? Folks, I'm not sure if there are any. And just to understand, I'll agree, the Mayweather left hook's in the conversation. I'll agree the Oscar De La Hoya 45's in the conversation. But that's how it is. I can't even say here that Mayweather's left hook is better than Manny Pacquiao's straight left. That's the level of dominance we're talking about. Right? Another freak athlete in boxing, Roy Jones. You looked at Jones against some of the best, right? He fights Mike McCallum. He fights Virgil Hill. Jones goes through a stretch where he's fighting greats, and the fights don't even look competitive. Right? When Jones was a young guy, he fought Bernard Hopkins. Right? Did James Toney, Hall of Famer, ever look more pedestrian than he looked against Roy Jones? You were watching that fight and you thought, man, Toney just looks so slow here. Right? Jones just seemed to have faster hands, faster reflexes. Right? Radar on that straight right hand. Jones had a great left hook. You were looking at Jones against a Hall of Famer and it looked like an exhibition. Now, what I want people to do is to realize that Inoue is a freak athlete. Right? He's lower key than Manny Pacquiao. Manny couldn't hide the hand speed. Right? You didn't have to know anything about boxing to look at the first round of a Manny Pacquiao fight and think to yourself, man, this guy has fast hands. Right now, Inoue is different. That's one of the reasons he's so dangerous. With Inoue, you're looking at him and you're seeing a lot of power. Right? The power just leaps out at you. Right? Inoue's two-handed. Inoue hurts guys. Inoue, in the Fulton fight, you got the feeling that Fulton felt Inoue's power to the point where Fulton, who normally is great moving around the ring, he has great legs, normally. Right, Fulton got hit with hard shots, tried to move away from Inoue, realized that he couldn't. Because the secret to Inoue, again, freak athlete. Inoue has freak athlete legs. Inoue's moving with him. I believe it's out of desperation that a mover, Fulton, who typically fights like Ali, right? Back foot, feints, he's moving here, he's moving there, he's keeping you guessing which way he's going. It's out of desperation that by the third round, Fulton starts coming forward on his front foot. In other words, what's the point of going back when the other guy can match you? The other guy can find you. The problem, too, is Fulton understood, I'm going back, and this guy's hitting me with hard, crisp shots. Does Inoue miss with that straight right? Well, just to understand, as you're looking at Inoue's power, you're missing the hand speed. And it's blinding. There's a moment in this fight where Inoue lets loose. He actually throws an extended combination. And you look at it and you're thinking, is this Inoue or is this Ray Leonard? You understood that if Inoue wanted, he could channel Ray Leonard. He could channel Andy Ruiz. He could be in there popping off 5-6 punch combinations. But that's not who he is. While Pacquiao showed you a lot of energy, so that his freak athleticism is front and center, Inoue looks more reserved. But understand, you're fighting Roy Jones. Same hand speed, same power, same suddenness. Right? Inoue is offensively gifted. Right? I'm not sure if there is a better offensive fighter in the game. Understand, things he seems to be doing on the fly. That jab to Fulton's body. Understand, Inoue's the shorter guy. Understand, Fulton actually is pretty good at keeping you off of him, normally. But yet Inoue gets close enough to Fulton where he's throwing a jab to Fulton's body. And folks, it's a dagger. It's a stiff jab, right? We don't talk about Inoue the jabber. He has a stiff jab. We don't talk about Inoue the hand speed guy. He has blinding hand speed. Blinding. Let me tell you how far ahead of Fulton he was. And Fulton goes into this fight unbeaten with 2 titles. In a weight class Inoue has never been. Super bantamweight. Right? Understand, Fulton starts to come forward against Inoue because it's clear he had to change the dynamic of the first round and a half, where he's on his back foot and Inoue, fearless, is stalking him. Right? One of the weaknesses, and we'll dissect Inoue, we'll be a little bit critical, but one of the weaknesses that freak athletes have is that they don't know how life is for the rest of us. Right? Manny Pacquiao starts to lose some of his athleticism. You notice he's getting hit with shots. Marquez figures him out. Understand, that fight where Marquez knocks Manny unconscious, that's the second time in that fight that Manny hit the canvas. Right? Understand, young Manny is facing some master boxers. One of my favorites, El Terrible, Eric Morales. Right? And Morales figures out how to neutralize that A-plus Manny Pacquiao straight left. And Manny at the time didn't have enough of a right hand to deal with Morales, who you weren't in the building with if you were one-handed. Right? Roy Jones, let's be real here. There's a moment there where Roy Jones is just light years ahead of everyone else. Right? Light years. Understand, Jones is the underdog against James Toney. They were both unbeaten going into that fight. That fight's a landslide. Right? Roy Jones is untouchable. But then after Roy wins the heavyweight title, that's how untouchable he is. Right? Gains weight, is dominant in the fight. When he comes back, you notice that Antonio Tarver, it's the cagey vets, the technicians who can take apart a freak athlete when that freak athlete slows down a bit. It's Antonio Tarver who figures out how to hit Jones with the perfect left hand to drop Jones. Jones is stopped early. Then his next fight is Glencoff Johnson, another cagey vet, right, who had the technique to beat Jones, because some of these freak athletes don't develop the technique. Right? Understand, freak athletes have an expiration date unless they can retool their gains. Jordan, as a wizard, right? You looked at him, you realized that times had changed. He was no longer the fastest player in the game. You had some people, Allen Iverson being one of them, who looked faster than him. You had some guys who were unafraid of him, Paul Pierce, right? And you noticed that Jordan could no longer just blow by you. So Jordan, who had developed a turnaround jumper, relied on that extensively as a Washington Wizard. Right? He didn't have the game in place that, let's say, Magic Johnson had in terms of passing the basketball, having teammates still follow him. Understand, Johnson never loses that, even when he becomes a forward after leaving the game and returning to the game. Right? Jordan didn't quite have that mapped out because he had relied on physical gifts. Now, Inoue's 30. He's in a place where Fulton can be on his front foot in the third round, and Inoue on the fly decides, okay, I'll be on my back foot here. Inoue looks at him. That's the other thing that's fascinating with Inoue. He's emotionally engaged. This isn't poker face slugger Sonny Liston, or poker face slugger George Foreman, or poker face slugger Zhili Zhang. Right? Guys who are murdering you, but, they look like they're buying groceries. Right? Now, Inoue is looking at Fulton. He's sharing facial expressions with Fulton. They're actually having a quiet dialogue. Right? Inoue is into the sport. So he sees Fulton coming forward. He starts to back up. He looks at Fulton a little bit. It's kind of like a Tony Soprano type thing, where you're into Inoue's emotions. He's showing you that he's thinking. Right? But after entertaining Fulton on his front foot, and you would have thought a slugger like Inoue would have said, you're coming forward? Okay, great. Let's meet in the pocket. Let's see who hits harder. You have 8 KOs. Let's be real. I'm a knockout puncher against you with 8 KOs, and you're trying to walk me down. Let's have at it. Right? That wasn't Inoue. Fulton's coming forward. Fulton lands some shots. Fulton lands some very good right hands. Inoue backs away. His ego isn't the type where he gets hit, he has to immediately show you in the next series that he's alpha. No, this guy is such a dominant athlete, total freak athlete, that the other guy comes forward. I believe Inoue's thought process was, oh, this is interesting. Let's see what he does. I'll entertain him coming forward for this round. Let's see where this goes. Right? Truly blessed offensively. Now let's get critical. Let me also say this too. The knockout is typical Inoue. Right? He throws a left jab to Fulton's body. Now understand how high risk this is. Fulton has hit him hard earlier in the fight. Right? Inoue is still getting close enough to Fulton to throw jabs to his body. Right? So Inoue times it where he throws a brutal jab to Fulton's body that lands on Fulton. But Fulton doesn't even have time to appreciate the pain, because Inoue's real punch is his second punch. It's that radar, on point, straight right hand. He hits Fulton in the head with it, and Fulton is woozy. Right? Fulton backs away. Then we get the freak athlete moment of the fight. I want people to look at that last round. Look at the next punch Inoue throws. It is a left hook. Folks, the ground he covers on that left hook is unnatural. It's like a third to half of the ring. Understand, Inoue doesn't hesitate. His legs are so good. His balance is so good that I believe if you look at that left hook closely, there's a moment in that left hook where both of Inoue's feet are off the ground. Right? Inoue hits him with the left hook and he freezes it. He literally comes down. He's so into fighting that he keeps his left hook locked after he lands it on Fulton. That's the other thing. For a guy who travels to get this left hook off, it's on the money. Right? At that point, if I were in Fulton's corner, I would have thrown in the towel. I would have said, freak athlete, having fun in this fight, beating up my guy, hurting my guy. I got to think about this guy's family. I've got to think about the health and safety of my fighter. We're outgunned. Right? Especially against Inoue, who's one of the premier closers in the entire sport. Now let's be critical. There are different levels of freak athletes. Right? You heard me refer to Willie Mays' defense. You heard me refer to Jordan's defense. I'm telling you, if you look at Floyd Mayweather early in his career, Floyd stuck around well into his 30s, but early in his career, when he's fighting Renato Hernandez, for example, right, takes his title, Floyd's first title, Mayweather's a freak athlete, right? He's just faster in every way you can think of than Renato Hernandez, who was the then champion. Right? Faster reflexes, faster hand speed, faster legs, better coordination. He's just a better athlete. Right? It's like that for, I would say, the first half of Floyd's career. He's simply a better athlete than Diego Corrales, for example. Another big fight. right? Arturo Gatti is in the Hall of Fame. Let me tell you, you're looking at that fight, and it was uncompetitive. Floyd beats up Gotti so badly that Floyd, who was a guy who, used to brag, didn't mind being obnoxious, would do things like wear, cultural clothing that his opponent's culture uh, believed in. Floyd would wear that in the ring. So he would be wearing Mexican garb for a fight against a Mexican fighter. Right? Floyd, against Renato Hernandez, was not the champion. He comes in with some replica belt. That's who Mayweather was. Mayweather beats up Gotti, a Hall of Famer, so badly that after the fight, Mayweather was diplomatic. Right? Mayweather understood, gee, I beat up this guy so badly that this bordered on being tasteless. Right? You saw Gotti against Mickey Ward. It's blood and guts every moment. Then you saw Gotti against a gifted freak athlete who studied the sport and who, like Jordan, knew it offensively and defensively. A gold standard guy. And let's just say it was lopsided. Right? It was probably worse. In fact, it was worse than Jones Tony. Right? Well, let me just say this about Inoue. You heard me mention that he gets hit with some pretty good right hands by Stephen Fulton. Right? Inoue, who enjoys the sport, who can take a punch, is that freak athlete who's like Roy Jones. He hasn't developed elite defense. He's offensively blessed, but he's not defensively blessed. Right? Understand, it's because Inoue was young that he survived much older, over 35, Nonito Donaire. Donaire in that fight did what KG vets do. He broke Inoue's eye socket. He broke Inoue's nose. In other words, Inoue got hit with shots against Nonito Donaire. Donaire, for those who don't know, even today, has one of the best left hooks in boxing. Right? These KG vets, I know to the rest of us, we see the fight and we don't see the defensive lapses. Clearly, Donaire, who, by the way, picked Fulton for the fight, just food for thought. Donaire saw some defensive lapses in Inoue. Made that a fight. Went the distance with him. Right now, Inoue, young in his prime, against a fighter, about a decade older than him, was able to win the decision. That fight was also in Inoue's backyard. But just understand, while Inoue is a freak athlete, right, he isn't the freak athlete who's also the technician. Right? This is not Willie Mays. Right? If you go to 24 Willie Mays Plaza, and if you look at Willie Mays' statute, on the statute is an inscription where they say Willie Mays' glove, where triples went to die. Right? Some San Francisco writer wrote that back in the day and they put it on the statute. Right? You know the freak athlete who's a technician. Right? You understand that as freaky as Jones was, as freaky as Manny Pacquiao was, the rest of the world started to catch up with them when they were in their early 30s. Right? You understand in Pacquiao's case, right? Pacquiao gets stopped by Torrealba. You understand that there's a moment in Pacquiao's career where he's a better athlete than he is a fighter. Right? Now, I'll say this about Inoue. Inoue is blessed offensively. There is no question about that. Right? Inoue wants to Palace this year. He wants to be undisputed in more than one weight class. Having the title in 4 different weight classes hasn't been enough for him. He feels he has more to go. My point to you is simply look at the calendar. I don't believe Inoue can be beaten right now. Right? But that window is only going to last for another, let's say, 1 to 2 years. Keep in mind, Marvin Hagler leaves the sport at 32 years old. Keep in mind, when you're talking about Roy Jones, right, there's the before Tarver Roy Jones, who's just absolutely dominant, right, faster than his opponent. There's a round where he fights Vinny Pazienza, and according to CompuBox, Pazienza does not land a punch on Jones. And Jones was not defensively blessed. It's just that Jones's offense was so thorough that opponents just could not get close enough to him to do anything about it. Right? Jones, older, you started to notice that he was getting hit hard with some shots. Right? There's a fight with Antonio Tarver before he goes up to heavyweight that Jones struggled in. Right? With regard to Inoue, let's talk about my short list of the best in the sport pound for pound. I believe Canelo, and I believe Canelo's vulnerable against Jermell Charlo. Make no mistake about that. Styles make fights at the end of the day. But I believe Canelo is defensively blessed. It's very hard to find Canelo's head. Canelo knows he's shorter than you. Canelo keeps his chin tucked. Have you noticed it? Canelo's head's on a swivel. Have you noticed it? It's very hard to hit Canelo flush early in fights. I understand. Golovkin and Ryder were able to land some major punches on Canelo later in their fights. Canelo's getting older. Right? But understand, Canelo is a craftsman defensively. Very hard to find him even as he's hunting you down. Right? Alexander Usyk is blessed defensively. Let's remember the last Usyk-Joshua fight. The first fight, Usyk hardly gets touched. This is against a bigger, stronger man with one of the biggest punches in the heavyweight division. The second fight, there's a moment late in that fight. It's around the 9th or 10th rounds where he gets buzzed with a shot. Joshua smells blood. Joshua jumps in. Joshua throws a lot of punches. Usyk decides to go into a defensive shell. Did Usyk get hit hard the rest of that round? Was there a moment in that round where you thought Usyk was playing possum? Because the very next round, Usyk comes out, he's fresh, he's clean, he's not dazed, he's not confused. He starts to rough Joshua up. Right? Terence Crawford is defensively blessed. Now, we're about to see Crawford's best moment because he's up against Errol Spence, who is not bashful offensively. Right? We all understand Errol, who's bigger than Terence Crawford, to the point where Carl Froch, the Hall of Famer, recently changed his prediction on the fight once he realized how much bigger Errol Spence was than Terence Crawford. By the way, big moment for that fight is going to be the weigh-in. You need to look at the weigh-in and look at Spence. Right? That's a big moment for that fight. Well, just understand, Terence Crawford has fought some of the fastest hands in the heavyweight division. Right? Amir Khan, how do you avoid getting hit hard by Amir Khan round after round? Folks, Kell Brook is very fast-handed. Didn't Kell Brook land some shots on Golovkin? Right? Terence Crawford, even against offensively blessed, hair trigger, fast-handed guys, is able to dampen their defense, isn't he? Right? Crawford defensively blessed. Usyk defensively blessed. Canelo defensively blessed. I would say that only Inoue, among those who to me are on the very short list in the sport pound for pound, only Inoue is not defensively blessed. He's offensively blessed, probably in a way the others are not. Right? He has ring coverage. He's the best athlete of the group. Right? This is a freak athlete. But understand, he's more Roy Jones than he is Floyd Mayweather. Right? Mayweather was the freak. Mayweather's Willie Mays. Mayweather's Jordan. Right? These are the guys who, whatever Mayweather has offensively, he has at least that much defensively. That's not in a way. So as a result, understand, it's the fact that the other guys are defensively blessed that have allowed them to continue to have world-class success well into their 30s. Right? Usyk, Crawford, folks, they were in their mid-30s. You don't get to your mid-30s unbeaten like both of those guys are if you aren't defensively blessed. Right now, we're in the heyday of Inoue. Right? He's tremendous. I don't mean to diss the guy. You don't learn defense in your 30s. Right? Certainly not a level of defense where you become defensively blessed. Right? Inoue is still in that zone where he knows he's faster, hits harder, is the better athlete than his opponent. Right? When Fulton hits him and lands big shots, Inoue's impulse is to take the shot. I'm just telling you that if Fulton was on his front foot against Mayweather, he wouldn't be able to find Mayweather. I'm just telling you, I saw Mayweather go through